Good evening. As everybody's kind of wandering up this evening, I just want to be sure and welcome you to our last Wednesday evening Lenten service. And I hope that you've taken a little of something away from each and every one. And I feel like I tried to kind of put together a very eclectic group of speakers and musicians and just really tried to offer a variety of experiences for each of us to hear the stories of the people who have shared with us. I feel has been a blessing and an encouragement in my life, and I hope it has yours as well. This evening we're actually going to begin with a special presentation from Reverend Jerry and his wife Donna Willer.
We have to wait on Bailey there. How many of you know what that's a picture of? Right, one of the caves. That's near Qumran, which is in Israel, near the Dead Sea and near Jericho. The Dead Sea, I think, is about 600 feet below sea level. There's an aerial view that was in this last issue of Biblical Archaeology. The caves are over to the right. The community of Qumran, the ruins are right there in the middle, and back in the background where the sky comes down, that's the Dead Sea. Now, the scrolls, go ahead, Kay. The scrolls are kept mostly in this. This is the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem, and we were there. And it's a beautiful place. It's a large building, and they have water fountains all around it, spraying water on it. And on the inside, you see this. And that's the scroll of Isaiah. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found fragments of every book of the Bible except Esther and Nehemiah from the Hebrew Bible. But if you think about it, Esther and Nehemiah were up in Persia, and they weren't with the rest of the folks in Israel. So that might be why they're not there. But that scroll around that, well, it's a big scroll with a handle. That's 24 foot long, and it's a complete book of Isaiah. And it's a vault. If something were to happen, they'd just trip a button or push a button, and that whole thing sinks into the basement and seals up. And it's kept under the right humidity and temperature and all of that under glass. And I read it, but I don't read Hebrew, but it's all there. Okay. Next one, Bailey. Okay, this is the ruins of Qumran, and we were there. And many of you remember Hadley Hartman, my uncle. He went with us, and Donna's mother, Yuva Williams, she went with us, and Donna and I and a tour group of, I think there were about 30 of us from southeast Missouri. And we were in a room like that. I don't know if that particular one, but our guide was Farah Salem was his name. His name meant joy and peace. He spoke 6 languages, English very distinctly. But he was telling us about that room being the scriptorium, where they copied the scrolls. And there'd be one scribe reading the scroll, and then maybe 10 or 12 sitting at benches copying it. And the way they knew they had it right, both in the Hebrew language and the Greek, there is a numerical number that goes with each letter. So when they would do a passage, they'd have to add up the number value of that. And if they were off by one number, then they knew somebody made a mistake, and then they'd have to go over it all again. Now, we were in there, and I circled that spot there with red, but it doesn't show up much, but there's a dark spot there. And you see how those walls, they were, this high. And I'm assuming the rest of that's like foundation. The rest of it was wood and decayed. But Donna's mother kind of, you know how you do, you lean up against a wall, and she had her hands behind her because she didn't want to get her dress dirty. And then I'm going to tell Donna, you tell them what happened.
How she got through customs with this, I do not know. But she worked this stone loose and stuck it in her purse and brought it home. So, and like I said, how she got through customs, I don't know. I really don't. She's always been a rock collector. When we were kids, we'd go to out to Castor River and swim, and Mom would be walking up and down the bank or in the shallows, collecting rocks. So it wasn't anything too unusual for her to collect rocks.
The sweet little Pentecostal Baptist lady stole it. Donna inherited it, and we've had it for 17 years since Donna's mom's been gone. But we're going to give it to the church because, that was there put in that wall 300 years before Jesus was here on earth. And Jesus may have walked down there to it. You don't know. He may have touched that rock. Anyway, I said, what are we going to do with that? I said, let's give it to the church. So we're going to donate it to the church. And my Uncle Hadley, I told you, he built that case down there and made it. So there's a spot in there. I'm going to put it in there with a plaque. And I told Donna, I said, what are we going to do with that? I said, that's unique. There's probably not another stone from Qumran in the whole state of Missouri. And I bet you there's not one from Israel in the whole county of Cape County. Now, I was kind of patting myself on the back. You ever do that? God's got a way of humbling, Well, 2 weeks ago, Danny Holloway was here, and I was telling him about that rock. He said, I got 2 rocks buried down there at the Amen Center from Mount Zion. Okay. So that'll be in the case.
Thank you. I didn't get to see that, Donna. I don't know how she walked out with that in her purse either. Suitcase, purse. Well, this evening I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our guest speaker, Miss Jill Mills. She's actually going to be playing the harp, and she will be sharing some of her testimony along with. So she's our guest speaker and our special music, and I hope you'll find this a blessing. I know as a child, I remember going to services where we got to hear a harp play, but it was years and years ago, and it had probably been 30 or maybe even 40 years before I heard Jill play, and I just thought, I love the sound of the harp, even though I don't believe that's what we're going to all do in heaven. But I do believe it's a beautiful sound and a way of praising God, and I love her testimony to share with it.
Before I play for you, I want to share the story of this harp. And my disclaimer is I am not a performer. I am a worshiper. But I have a question for you. Have you ever felt, as a Christian, that there were times where your prayers kind of got to the ceiling, but no higher? It just kind of felt like God was off in another hemisphere doing more important things, And I think if we're honest, we have all felt that way before. We've all wondered, are there times where God doesn't hear our prayer? Either he's too busy, or maybe we feel silly praying for something so minute. But there are a few experiences in my life I'd like to share with you. I remember many years ago when we lived in St. Augustine, Florida, I kept hearing in my spirit, "You have not because you ask not." And I thought, okay, didn't really think much of it, but then it would resurface. And about, a little slow, 3 or 4 times later, it's like, all right, Lord, you're trying to show me something. And I thought, well, what is it that I need that I haven't asked for? Now, don't laugh. This was a very good lesson. What came to my mind was pajamas. You think, pajamas? You're going to ask God for pajamas? Well, it was during a time of my life, God had called me out of the medical field into teaching. So I left a job that I loved with an income that I also loved to nothing. And our bills didn't change during that time. So it was a 2-year, for me, a very large step of faith. So spending money on something as frivolous as pajamas, when I remember one week I literally had $8 to feed my family with. Pajamas were not high on the list of priorities. And I'm 4'11", and you guys won't get this, but you ladies will. It's hard to go into a ladies' department when you're 4'11" and find anything that fits, that you don't have to cut that much off of. Now I can walk into any girls' department and pick up size 14 anything, and it fits me perfect. But I didn't want jammies with unicorns, puppy dogs, Hello Kitty on them. I wanted something that looked more grown up. So I said, all right, Lord, I need a pair of pajamas. Now I want to tell you, it was hours, not many hours later, my phone rang, and it was my neighbor Liz. She said, girl, I'm going through my closet and I'm going through my clothes. And she said, I was going through this jammy drawer, and she said, I've got this cutest pair of jammies. Don't know why, I've never worn them, but could you use a pair of pajamas? Now Liz is maybe an inch taller than me, and we're within 10 pounds of each other. They were the cutest little jammies with little coffee cups on them. Now you might think, well, Jill, that's silly. That's no big deal. It is a big deal when God's in it. I would rather get something that, I don't want to say small, but that what some people would consider insignificant from the Lord, that you know and you're knower, it's directly from God. I would rather have that than $100 to take to the mall and buy whatever I need. But sometimes I think we discount the small things. And we are to give him whatever we are, whatever we have. It reminds me of the old adage, God doesn't want your ability, he wants your availability. Well, it's like this harp. Fast forward a little bit, got my degrees. I was teaching at a Christian school, and I was teaching in the preschool department. And I remember at nap time, which I renamed mat time because not many of them actually napped, but I would walk through and pray over them as they were laying down. And it occurred to me one day, I know why she's not napping. I know the family dynamics. I know what that little 5-year-old was dealing with day in and day out. Or I know why he's not napping. You get to know a lot about your students as a teacher. And one day, it just hit me so clearly. God, I need a harp. If you give me a harp and you show me how to play it, I'll play it for you. Because if it worked for Saul, it'll work for these little guys. So I remember it wasn't many days after that. I was literally pulling in the parking lot of the grocery store. And it's kind of like Elijah. He had this burn shut up in his bones. It literally felt like that. All of a sudden, I had this intense desire. I had to have a harp. I've got to have a harp. And that was probably in September or October that year. And I said, God, if you give me this harp, I will play it for you. Now, I want to stop there for a minute because that's a 2-part prayer. If you do this, I'll do this. Well, I think as Christians, a lot of times we have the idea that we have to become very proficient or very good at something before God can use us. And that's just simply not true. If we give him whatever we have and whatever we don't have, without limitation, he'll use it. So there was a process, and I'll share about getting it in a minute, but there was a process of receiving it and learning to minister with it. And I can tell you, it was a long time after I started before I felt any type of confidence in myself doing it at all. But God doesn't care about that. He just wants us to show up where he can work through us. But you women in particular you older women like me, you've raised your children. Think back, and I would be willing to bet that as you were raising them, there were moments where you thought, one day I would like to learn to paint or to sing or to speak another language or to draw or to play an instrument. something that you had a desire to do but had to be tabled because you were working, you were rearing children. It just wasn't the right season for that. But I wonder how many of you now are in a season where you can say, now's the time. Here I am. Here's my hands, my mouth. I've got the time and I'm willing. I don't have the ability, but I have the availability for you to work through me and to develop these things. I want to share something with you. I received these in the mail yesterday. Now you might be thinking, well, why did you bring pictures here? I'm about to tell you. What do you think of when you see these? I think they're beautiful. And I think they look like someone probably has had quite a bit of experience painting. But you want to know something? My dear friend from Florida sent these to me just over a year ago. She said, God, I want to learn to paint. Will you show me how to paint? Look at this. 1 year ago. What are they going to look like in another year from now? Is God a good teacher or what? So this is a good example. I mean, we're all broken, bruised, tattered, and torn. That's why we need Jesus. That's why we need a rescue plan. Jesus. But when you give yourself to Him, this can be the result. And I want to set the stage because before I play, I want you to know I don't really know what I'm doing. That's the truth. I've never had a lesson. I don't read a lick of music. And in fact, how many people read music in here? Okay, so you guys will know what it means that this is tuned to the key of E flat. I don't know what that means, and that doesn't mean anything to me. But what I know about this harp is it weighs about 60 pounds. There's 32 strings. There were about 26 sets of hands that worked on this. It took 2 years for the wood to procure before they could build it. And I learned something about a month ago. I've been tuning it wrong all these years. Yes, I have, because apparently the key of E flat has an A flat in it, except on my harp it doesn't. I did not know that. And I shouldn't say I've been tuning it wrong. I think actually I've been tuning it right. The way God has taught me to play that, it is just astounding to me. With that A instead of the A flat, it makes everything, the patterns and everything that I've learned on this work for me. So I began to pray for this harp in September or October this particular year. And as the months, not many months, I think about 5 months, as the months went on, this burn just became stronger and stronger and stronger. And I would tell my boss, the principal of the school, I said, Wallace, I'm telling you, I'm about to get this harp. I can feel it in my bones. It's like right here in front of me. I can almost see it and touch it. She said, really? I said, I'm telling you. I know that I know that I know. God's about to give me a harp. Well, I know they kind of got tired of hearing it, but I knew. I just couldn't shut up about it because I knew it was about to happen. Well, one Wednesday morning, I always made rounds on the school grounds and unlocked early in the morning, prayer walked, and then I received the children that came early before school. Well, this one particular morning, I was walking through the office area, and our office manager was there, and I stopped and I said, Melinda, God's about to give me my harp. I know it. It's like right here. She said, really? And she kind of had a poker face, and I thought, she thinks I'm crazy. But anyway, I went about my business. The next day, this was delivered, anonymous donation to me. Now, tell me God didn't answer that prayer. He didn't hear that prayer and answer it. What came with it was 10 prepaid lessons, which I declined, not because I'm not teachable, but I know the mind of man. If I had taken any lessons, people would give me the credit. Maybe I'm a quick learner or someone taught me the basics or whatnot. It literally took me longer to learn how to tune it than it did to sit down and play it. And I remember I had it for maybe a month or so. I had just learned how to tune it. I had looked at this book over and over and over. It didn't make sense to me. But finally, I had a tuned instrument. And it was right after that the Lord laid on my heart to take it to the hospice house in Jacksonville. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. I can't even play a song on it yet. Why would I want to? Oh, Lord. I think maybe, how about we wait until I kind of know what I'm doing and I'm a lot more confident? Well, God He doesn't compromise with me in ways like that. And I kept thinking, maybe that wasn't God, maybe that'll go away and I won't have to. It did not go away. So after about 2 weeks of trying to ignore it, I thought, fine. And I called the hospice house and I said, may I please bring my harp to play up and down the hallways for your patients? Well, they were excited, a lot more excited than I was about it. Well, I took it there, and I got to tell you, I was shaking inside because I didn't know any songs, and I really didn't know what I was doing yet. But and here's where God began to teach me a lot of spiritual lessons, and also to do some inner healing, as He does. He's very sneaky about the way He does that sometimes. But I was in the hallway, and I just began to play. God began in the hallway at the hospice house to show me patterns and to show me strings that go together, and He began to give me melodies. And I bet I hadn't been playing. Actually, I was just I wouldn't even say playing. I don't know what I was doing. But regardless, about 10 minutes into it, this large fella, an orderly, came down the hall and he said, Girl, you got all those nurses up there in tears. They all be crying up there at the nurses' station. And my first thought was, oh, is it that bad? But then I thought, wait a minute, I realized I had been crying as I was playing too, because it was touching my heart. And I realized then that God doesn't want our ability, He wants our availability thing. It sunk down just a little deeper in my heart. He also wants us to be willing to step out. He also wants us to be willing to be embarrassed, or just to lay ourselves out. Say, like tonight, I can tell you, I don't know what I'm going to play, and I really didn't know what I was going to say. I just show up desperate for God, and I know because He lives in me, and because He knows I want to be used by Him, He always shows up. I just have to have ears to hear and a heart to follow. So when I got the harp, and I figured out how to tune it, and I started playing it bit by bit, God began to show me a run, just a little piece of music. And I didn't know that He was preparing me for a whole lot of things to come. It actually ended up being a bridge that I can use between a lot of praise and worship songs. It also ended up being a very major part of Pachelbel canon, which I was not familiar with. But I marvel at how God is working in us and we don't realize it. And sometimes He's behind the scenes setting things up we have no idea. So I had it probably 3 months or so, and I was asked to play at a wedding. And by that time I had learned maybe 2 or 3 songs, and none of them were really what I thought a bride would be interested in walking in on. And they said, no, we would rather it be something that God gives you. And I thought, well, that's no tall order. I don't really know what I'm doing yet. But I sat down. It was a Wednesday evening. And the wedding came up very suddenly because of, just circumstances. This gal was from another country, and the date had to be changed and whatnot. So I sat down Wednesday nights like, here I am, God, give me the song. Nothing came. I sat down Thursday night. It's like, okay, let's wrap this up because, Saturday's real close. I'll show you what I got. He wouldn't even give me the whole song. He gave me part of it. I often say that it's a good example of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That 11th hour and 59-minute thing, I still don't like it, but God uses it. But this is a song that he gave me, and I call it Wendy's Walk. Gave me the ending to this. My hands are cold, so they're a little rusty. But about 30 minutes before the actual wedding was when I actually got the ending to that song. I learned so much going through that example. I learned about that 11th hour, 59-minute thing. I learned I really don't like it, but I learned that God is faithful. And I remember at the rehearsal, I played what I had, and I said, I don't have an ending to it yet. And Clay, the groom-to-be, said, doesn't matter. You'll have it when you need it. And I thought, it's easy for you to say, but then I thought those words kept, I will have it when I need it. I don't need it yet. And I had to learn to get comfortable with that. I still don't like it, but I've learned to go with it. The next song that I want to play for you is called Aaron's Song. And this is a sweet young girl that got married a few years ago. She came to the house, and I said, well, what are you wanting your wedding to? Do you want to be a princess meeting her prince? Do you want it to be a worship service? She said, yes, I want a worship service. So I played several songs that I thought would be appropriate, she might like. She said, no, I'm just not feeling those. And it's like, oh, here we go again. I know what this means. I said, Aaron, let me just pray. I think I know what he's pulling here. I knew what he was doing. Before she even got out of my neighborhood, he dropped it in my heart. And this is it. Thank you. About 3 months ago, my daughter and son-in-law, for my birthday, paid for a video to be made. She said, Mama, we paid for it, so now you need to do it, a promo video. I said, oh, I've been really putting it off. And she said, and by the way, Mama, it needs to be an original song. I said, how about just, no, Mama, it needs to be an original song, so get with God and do what you got to do. Okay. Well, that meant going into the studio, recording a song, and then giving that little thing you stick in the computer thing to the video guy. But it also meant I had to get still and wait, which I don't do real well. And I knew it had to be a whole song, not something short for like, a bride to get from back there to here. It had to be like a real song for a lengthy video. So I got bits and pieces of it, and I thought, I'm just going to make the appointment to go into the studio, because I know me. If I wait until it feels right or sounds right or it's perfect or whatever, we may get into weeks or months, and I just kind of want to get this off my plate. So I made the appointment, and I went in. It's like, let's just do this. Let's do it and get it done. Well, this is what he gave me. After I played that, thank you. After I played that, he said, now what's the title of that song? I thought, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about a title of it. And he said, well, I've got to have a title to put on there to put into my system so I know how to pull it back up. And I thought, how about A Step of Faith? Because that's really what this was. Big time. But anyway, that is probably one of my favorite songs that God has given me. But I really want to encourage you. Sometimes when people hear me play and they don't get the backstory, they think I know what I'm doing. They think I can read music. They think I understand this instrument. And I so want people to know how much it is not me. Have you ever had something that you've done or something you've just kind of known in your knower that you know you had nothing to do with? That's this. It never amazes me. But it just astounds me what God can do. So what I'd like to play for you now are just a few little praise songs. That is by far one of my favorites. So, what I want to leave you with is this. Don't ever sit back and think, well, I really don't have anything to give, or I can't sing like so-and-so, or play like so-and-so, or I don't have a ministry like so-and-so. Every one of you has an undeveloped or underdeveloped gift, the gift of creativity God has given us that's inside of you. And I promise you, if you just say, here I am, the mess that I am, broken, bruised, tattered, and torn, but I'm Jesus's. Here's my hands, here's my mouth, here's my feet, here's my will. I'm willing to go and do. Don't wait till you feel like you do it good. I had an awful start. My hands were cold. They were like, it's not going to happen. And it didn't. They had to get them warmed up. But you know what? I love Jesus, and I'm here, and I want to share. And I hope that that leaves you encouraged about the power of prayer and about God using us right where we're at with whatever we give him. Everything that I make playing the harp is given away. Right now I have projects I'm working on, not just, but the main projects are in Kenya. Because my prayer was, God, if you give me a harp and you show me how to use it, I'll play it for you. So I'm playing it for him, and I hope it has blessed and encouraged you in some way. Thank you.
A board with some information and some pictures out in the entryway as you come in, where you can see that some of the work that she does in Kenya. And so for our offertory, Brian is going to offer us a song called The Middleman. I repeatedly was asked to have the Schmid family as special music, and with it being a midweek service, that was too difficult to kind of get put into place. I kind of ran into that with several of our musicians, and but if our ushers will come forward and receive as Brian shares a song with us tonight. All of the funds, that we received tonight will go to support personal relief efforts that Jill works with individuals in Kenya, and the funds go to help support families with malaria or education, doctor bills, hospital bills, just a variety of things, and she'd be more than happy to share that with you after the service.
I could go free. Praise to that man who died on Mount Calvary. I could go free.
Thank you. Well, tonight I'd like to close, as this is our last service, and just really encourage you that as the bulletin has our information on the main scripture focus that we've had for this Lenten season, but with each and every one of our speakers, they've found a way to share their story. Not a single one spoke out of their profession, whatever it may have been. Gene Garrison had a PhD, but it had nothing to do with his Parkinson's. Each of us have a story to share. Each of us have a gift within us that the Holy Spirit has called us. Jesus says we are to go and make disciples. And I hope that you can relate to each of these stories and understand that where we are in our journey may look very different, but we each are in a place in which we can encourage others to come alongside. And so I want to close with a scripture that just kind of came to me today, and that those last hours.